Welcome to the Digication Scholars Conversation Series. I'm your host, Jessica Chittum. In this episode, you'll hear part 2 of my conversation with Karen Gonzalez from the CUNY School of Professional Studies. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of the Digication Scholars Conversation Series can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app.
You are about to hear part 2 of our conversation with Karen Gonzalez from CUNY School of Professional Studies. Please be sure to listen to our previous episodes to hear part 1 of this conversation.
So I'm admiring these ePortfolios, and I know there's this showcase. How do the other students get to see their peers' work, phenomenal work? How, and I'm thinking about belonging again here. How do they get to celebrate each other, student to student?
Yeah, so this is something that we've thought about for the last year and how we can engage a much larger student body to do exactly this, right? See each other's work. Sometimes it happens in the classroom. So students who are in a capstone course that have this option available to them have a peer review week. So whether they're writing research papers or developing an e-portfolio, they have a chance to see each other's work. But in the context of the showcase, we have a showcase site that's dedicated to the winners of the showcase for that year. And that showcase site is promoted on social media channels at the campus, for the campus, our own emails. So we actually send students a monthly newsletter that says, hey, these showcase winners are here. Feel free and take a look at their e-portfolios. Again, whether they're still in that developing process or even alumni. A lot of our alumni really engage after graduation. And I think that's such a nice element of our college because they want to give back. They want to continue being involved, even if it's, at a very basic level. And so we do share.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's a testament to the community that you've built. If they're coming back after they graduated to continue and engage, then obviously they felt as though they belonged in that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's really nice to see. I think our students, our alumni are not only, experts in their field after they graduate, but also they're motivational for the students who are still at SPS. And so sometimes alumni come in to talk through different engagement events. Before COVID, we actually had an in-person event that I happened to be a part of. And I spoke a little bit about the work of ePortfolio. And we had a couple of programs of students from different programs coming into campus and just having a little bit of dinner, chatting. It was more of a networking space, but also informative in that sense. So we did have some ePortfolio samples there, in addition to having a presence, because or having a virtual presence in orientation, right? We had 2 alumni actually in an interview format speak about the work that they did in ePortfolio when they were students. And so we were able to have a copy of that be live on the orientation for the incoming class. So that's also very impactful for them because they see, hey, I've been at SPS for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and this is what I've done. And for the new students, this is something that they can see of what they can do, right? It's more of a motivation for them to speak about their experience as online learners, but I think more importantly, in a very urban environment like New York, but even for those who are not, we do have international students who, live in Saudi Arabia and who live in, Europe and who live in South America, that they have a whole different experience, right? So it's a really nice way to engage both new students and sort of reinforce that impact that our alumni have.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's just so much that you're doing to reach out to everybody all over the world, it seems. I didn't realize you had students in other countries as well, just located in those other countries. Just brings a new perspective to all of this.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice because location is one part of belonging when you think of building a community, but for us it's the complete opposite, right? For us it's doesn't matter where you are, it's really about your engagement and how we actually provide a service to students by doing these one-to-one sessions or doing these workshops in which students can just enter, a Zoom meeting and be in the middle of a forest or be on the train or be outdoors and continue to learn of something, right? Something in which maybe they didn't have an experience before because they're in this sort of single interface through Blackboard.
And to steal a Digication line, they're really making their learning visible,
Mhm.
which is such a powerful part of all of this. Everybody else can see it and be motivated by it, and they can see it personally and be motivated by it as well. It's just wonderful. I love it. Um, so I want to get into some kind of personal student stories. Now, I know your caseload is like 2,000 strong. So I get that, you're going to be impacting a lot of students, but maybe sometimes just for a short blip as they need support. But I also want to know if you have any, real personal stories with some of your students.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually this semester I took on something new, and I think this is just, I have a lot to do, but I also like to do more, which sort of creates this very long hour night of, me brainstorming with students. But there was this one student in particular who is in the undergraduate nursing program.
Mhm,
And initially when I met her, she just wanted to comply with her course requirement, which was really uploading an assignment to ePortfolio and extracting a copy for her professor. But in that initial conversation, I sort of asked her, what do you want to use this ePortfolio for, right? Where do you see this ePortfolio going as you continue the curriculum? She's sort of at the midpoint of her program. And so she was thinking of exploring different careers, even if it was just a master's in nursing education specifically, to then become a nurse practitioner. So I really thought, we can actually make this ePortfolio into not only a showcase for you, but also, for your family, for your friends who don't know, what your experience is like, when you're home. And she happens to be a mother of, I think, two children, and she has a husband and a family. And so for her, it was really important to not only highlight the work that she is doing at home, but also academically, right?
mhm.
And so we happened to meet a couple of times in the semester, which transitioned to every single week this semester. And we worked together through different topics of her experience as a longtime medical assistant, and then her transition into becoming a nurse. So she actually started before coming to SPS. She became a registered nurse at Hostos Community College, which is another institution or another campus of CUNY.
Mhm.
But she actually came here from the Dominican Republic. So that in itself was a very big transition. And that's something also that we highlighted on the ePortfolio. But we also built a friendship. And it was really nice because she spoke to me about not only her academic work and accomplishments, but also personal things. Like she would tell me when, she would go grocery shopping, or when she had something new to highlight of getting an A on an exam, or, her son excelling at virtual school now that he's at
Mhm.
home. So it was a lot of relationship building, and we hadn't noticed until the very end, which happened to be last week. As her semester ends, she really came to, um, she closed, she ended all her course requirements for the semester. But in this transition, we discussed about her development professionally, personally. Um, Eventually we exchanged numbers, and we want to continue in contact. And I hope that's the case. But it was a very nice surprise to be able to connect with her specifically
Mhm.
because she is someone who lives in a very urban environment and doesn't have a quiet space to do her work, and all of what that entails, right? And this comes, this goes for students in this campus and any CUNY campus right this moment. Um, so we really did connect. We really did connect. And I hope that she does apply for the showcase. Although I told her, I sort of nudged her and said, you kind of have to, because we worked on this all semester. But um, she's a really, really dedicated student, and I think has gone through many challenges to get to where she is. And I sort of tend to gravitate towards that as well, being a student myself. Um, I actually recently just finished my undergraduate degree, and that sort of juggling of coursework and schoolwork, and having a 9 to 5 job and
Yeah.
class in the evening, like it was all in relation.
And
So
work in the evening.
and
Let's
work
not
in the evening.
forget work in the evening.
And work in the evening. It was a really difficult but connecting time with her. So, we would just send each other text messages like, "Hey, how are you doing? I hope you're fine today. This week let's work on this in this area." And we'll check in, right? It was more of giving this sort of flexible space for her to say, this week I wasn't really feeling it. I have a lot going on, and it was pushing that forward.
Mhm. Okay, I'm just going to say it because your job title is ePortfolio assistant, and that seems terribly inadequate. I just, I think we need to rethink your job title because, like, I see mentor in here. You're not just assisting people with ePortfolios; you're creating, online curriculum for them.
Yeah, it sort of it has grown. It has grown.
Yeah.
Initially, it was an e-portfolio assistant, and now it's friend, venting partner, mentor at sometimes. Yeah. And it's again,
Motivator,
um,
motivational speaker.
yeah, a little bit of everything. It's just needed, and I think for me, quite honestly, I always think, what would I want out of this experience as a student? And my work before coming to SPS really taught me about the importance of mentorship, and how opening doors for students can be something as simple as, where do you want to go in your career, or asking basic questions like, how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? Um, that
Can you
has,
tell me about this a lot? Like, tell me, how did you
yeah.
fall into this? I wanna know your story.
Sure, thank you. So I am a non-traditional student myself. Uh, I had withdrawn from a private institution a couple of years back, and I came back to CUNY after 6 years of having, a sort of hiatus. And I got my associate's degree from LaGuardia Community College in business administration. And in that process, I became a student success mentor. So
Oh.
this program, which of course is phenomenal, and hopefully you have a chance to hear from the folks at LaGuardia too, really allowed me to expand myself professionally, but also reflect on, what my experience was, what my story was, how I landed at LaGuardia, and what that change meant for me. Um, and so I slowly became to realize, this is something that I'm passionate about, without knowing this before, of course, because we're so head on in our 9 to 5 jobs that, here we have, a moment that you can create an impact for students. And then, it just all happens from there. I like to think that it happens by chance, but slowly I'm realizing it does not. And so at LaGuardia, I formed part of the Student Success Mentor program. And not only did we learn how to engage with students, but also help them reflect on their experiences, as well as create this sort of warming environment of inclusion and engagement, and sort of talk about, how are we relevant to this society? How are we relevant to each other? Um, finding similarities, finding differences, and expanding on that. And I think that has allowed me to take all of that experience and bring it to SPS for students who continuously have challenges in their everyday life, like, being a frontline worker, being a parent, a caretaker, and now during this sort of difficult time, juggling all of those areas. And so, after some time, I happened to also work with career services in helping students think professionally of what they want to do, right, after their time at LaGuardia and even beyond that. So, exploring different industries of their interest and also exploring industries of maybe an area that they weren't so familiar with. So it's sort of this exploration, mentorship concept, and I brought that over to SPS when I found an opportunity to really connect with students one to one. I think at LaGuardia I didn't know this, but once I actually started to not only guide students through ePortfolio and through their coursework in general, I ended up loving it without knowing it. So once I saw that, SPS had this sort of position available, I thought, let me give it a shot. Um, and here I am 2 years later, and I have all these hats, but it's great. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world, because I think that I connect so much with my students because of my own experiences um, as an undergrad who works and goes to school part time and has a family to take care of, and um, so much more. Right? Like,
Mhm.
we often forget that we do so many things. Like now, you just happen to tell me I'm all these things. I'm all these things, and I just, it's part of my everyday, so I don't necessarily see it.
Yeah.
So
It
I don't
gives
see it
us
so evident.
perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love it. I love where I am. I have such an awesome team that is not only supportive, but also has taught me a lot of the importance in engagement for students and for faculty. I think part of this job really comes from, or comes with, speaking to students, but also having a sense of communication with faculty who are their primary face, right, for students who are interacting with students on a weekly scale. How can we better support you? And that way, how can we better support our students? How can we elevate their experience from semester to semester, even if it is, just sending an extra email to the class, or creating a Blackboard template to point them to a specific resource. Sorry, a Blackboard announcement template to point them to a specific resource. Small things like that I think create such a friendly environment, but also students feel that, right? Students feel when their faculty are supportive, when they have, team members, or when they are part of this internal community with their classmates, even through discussion boards, right? I think ePortfolio in that sense allows that dynamic piece to just be so much more than reflection of oneself, because they read each other's work in specific courses and they learn a lot from each other. They learn about, similar experiences or even different ones, and how that has impacted their work as a student and as a professional. So it's definitely been a long road, but fun for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's really fun continuity because last week I talked to a current student success mentor at LaGuardia in a similar way, and I'm just tickled that both of you have talked quite a bit
Yeah.
about how participating in that program has changed your life trajectory.
Mhm.
Um, that you professionally, personally are in a different place because of your engagement with peers
Mhm.
as a mentor, with your engagement with the ePortfolio program, with reflecting, with being a part of a campus community. I'm really loving this
Yeah,
continuity.
it's a phenomenal group. And I think on all fronts, it's something that the experience taught me so much about myself, as an individual, as a peer, I think as a mentor, if you can, think about it that way. And now as a staff member, right? So now it's at a much more, not higher level, but at a different scale in which I can engage with students and make meaningful conversation. That's always what I look for. I look for a meaningful conversation, and it's really just to get to know the student and to sort of peel the onion, right? To get to know the student and be able to learn so much more from them and their experiences and integrate that into a new semester of students. So it's almost like this puzzle that happens where one puzzle piece unites with the other, and those puzzle pieces are our students.
I'm just so impressed by what you do, and you have to find some fulfillment in this because it seems like you're very impactful, and the students clearly impact you as well. Um, but it just seems like such a wonderful program that you have set up, and how you're engaging with it as far more than an ePortfolio assistant. It seems like mentor is in your blood at this point as
Yeah.
well.
I think by now it's completely mentorship. But it's something that I really found rewarding. And again, it's something that I wasn't looking for, but it happened. And I think it was important for me to reflect on who I was first. And I think LaGuardia's experience helped me work through that. And then coming into this role, I wanted my group of students to do the same, right? To have that fulfilling experience of, I now know all of the things relevant to my program of study, but I also know this about myself, right? I also know that I can work through the crunch time hours, and I can juggle things, and I have discipline to, have different things done or accomplished at the same time. So it's really about elevating who they are, their skills, and helping them sort of identify how can they transfer these skills, in their current position, or if they're working from home, how can they make an impactful moment for their colleagues, right? So um, it is has been a very humbling and gratifying experience, definitely.
I love it. What's next at SBS? What's coming down the road? There's no real end in sight to COVID just yet. We're all very, very hopeful, but
Mm.
we don't know when all of this is going to end. Even aside from COVID, what's coming next? Because it seems like you have a lot in the works all the time.
Yeah, we happen to brainstorm quite a lot, and
It sounds like.
yeah, even though it is a trial and error process, I think it's an answer that is, it can go every which way. I think for me, ideally, I want to see my students in a virtual space together. I think that's our next goal. So whether that means creating an event for students to speak about their e-portfolios, or in a model sort of like a showcase, or even have a conference for students to speak about their experiences at SPS, right, outside of ePortfolio, and maybe integrating how this tool help them reflect on that experience. I think that for me, that's my next goal. I want to see that happen at some point. Um, I also want to see students uh, sort of project further than short term. So that's also that I found students at SPS, and of course, it's a quite different group, where uh, our students are again either very settled into their careers or looking for a career change, and they look for progression in their current field. I want to see them go beyond that. I want to see them, think 10 years ahead. How is this undergraduate or graduate degree going to impact my work? How do I get there? Right. So it's almost that planning process that happens all over again, and it'll continue happening. It won't end, because I think that's what allows us as humans to, or individuals to, continue the work that we're doing and continue being motivated and continue being challenged by what's around us, by what influences us, by what motivates us. So the answer is to be determined. But
Awesome.
for now, those are the goals. Yeah.
I'm feeling assured that there are lots of things happening and they will continue happening. Well, it was just a true pleasure to talk to you today and to learn all about what you're doing and who you are and the dedication that you bring to your work. I just have to say I'm very impressed. And
Thank you.
I am putting in my official note that I think you need a new job title.
Thank you so much. It was a
Your
pleasure.
boss.
Thank you. It was honestly a pleasure. Coming into this, I really thought, um, for me, it's never so often, or it's not often that I get to talk about the work that I'm doing. But more importantly, what we're doing at the college and, um, just really overall things. It was really nice to be here, to be in this space, and hopefully it serves for other colleagues to think about, how we can engage students in this new space, right? From our colleagues who are transitioning from face-to-face institutions to now virtual. Um, and we don't know how long this will continue, but we know that we're here. And so I hope that uh, sort of the information that we spoke about today will help them get to a point where their students can be or belong to their institution, even virtually.
Absolutely. I think you achieved your objective.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Absolutely.
The Digication Scholars Conversation Series is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative ePortfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. This episode was produced by Drew Albanesius. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for watching.